Carroll Shelby is a professional racer who retires early due to a heart problem and enters the automobile sales industry. He is a natural salesman and the people guy who is friendly and approachable. He is also a fantastic wheel designer and engineer. Meanwhile, Ken Miles is a racer who works as a mechanic and owns his own business to support his wife, Molly, and kid, Peter. He tells it like it is, which sometimes irritates customers, but he never sugarcoats anything. At the race, Ken is told his car does not match the regulations and begins violently ranting at the race official. Carol notices this and calms him down, but the two later argue and Ken throws a wrench at him. Later, the IRS comes and closes down Ken's garage, forcing him to give up most of his racing to support his family. Meanwhile, Henry Ford too is unhappy and Ford Motors because sales are falling and his father's firm is in jeopardy. He begins to accept suggestions from his subordinates like Lee Lauka, who proposes that the sexiest cars are race cars like Ferraris. He believes that if Ford can win the Le Mans 24-hour event, they will be at the top. In order to accomplish this, they fly to Italy and present a proposal to the struggling Ferrari. They will buy the company while Enzo Ferrari retains control of the racing branch. Ferrari utilizes this offer to entice Fiat to make a good bid and Fiat purchases Ferrari. Ferrari tells Ford executives to shove it and calls Henry a fat pig. When they return, Henry has them recount in detail what Ferrari said, and he becomes more motivated than ever to defeat Ferrari. He chooses to build their own racing section. Lee approaches Carroll, the only American to win Le Mans, and asks him to lead their racing team, creating and testing cars. Carroll agrees and asks Ken, the best driver he knows, to take part. When Molly sees Ken leaving with Carroll, she becomes enraged and demands to know the truth. He tells her that he's been given a great deal to race and she is overjoyed. She just doesn't want him to ever lie to her. The team begins preparing the car for their first big race, but as the race approaches, Ford Vice President Leo Baby approaches Carroll and informs them that Ken's rockish, unpredictable nature is not a part of the Ford brand, and he cannot be trusted to do press and represent Ford well, so he cannot be the driver. Carroll fights for Ken, but is eventually obliged to tell him that he will not be racing. Ken is enraged when Ford loses the race. Carroll convinces Henry to let him rehire Ken. He goes to Ken's house and apologizes and asks him to return, but the two end up fighting on his front lawn. They eventually give up, tired, and Molly gives them cold sodas. Ken rejoins the team who are working day and night to improve the automobile. Lee informs Carroll that Leo is determined to remove Ken from his team and intends to do so on their next visit. Knowing this, when Henry and Leo arrive, Carroll locks Leo in his office and takes Henry for a trip in the race car, where Henry discovers how dangerous and wonderful racing is. When they stop, he sobs. Carroll offers him a deal: let Ken race in Daytona, and if they win, he will race in Le Mans, France. If they lose, Henry takes complete control of the Carroll's company at Daytona. They face stiff competition from the second Ford crew, which Ford has commissioned to determine who designed the best vehicle. Ken wins the race, guaranteeing their team spot at Le Mans and assuring Ken drives here. In France, Le Mans approaches Ferrari and Henry are also in attendance. When the race begins, Ken's door does not close, slowing him down on the first lap. The car they designed could be accelerate to extremely high speeds, but doing so wore out the brakes. So the pit crew changed the brakes late in the race. The Italians at the Ferrari are upset, claiming that it is a violation of the rules, but Carroll points out that the rule book allows them to alter parts, but it does not specify which ones. Eventually, Ferrari's car spins out and crashes, putting Ken in the first place, and Molly and Peter can watch on TV as Ken compiles his much-needed perfect leg. Leo, who had been attempting to pass Carroll and disrupt their strategy, approaches Henry and says that the ideal image for Ford would be if all three cars crossed the finishing line together. He agrees and Leo gives Carroll the order, but he rejects. Carroll gives Ken the instructions but reminds him it's his race and he'll support him no matter what. Ken initially accelerates to victory, but he soon slows down, allowing the other drivers to catch up and cross the finish line together. Everyone celebrates Ken's victory. Under a technicality, he begins behind another car, places him second, not first. Carol is upset but Ken accepts it, and the two depart together. Weeks later, while training on the racetrack, Ken crashes and dies. Carol visits his family's home and finds Peter, to whom he hands the wrench that Ken threw at him. He gets into his car and, despite his condition, drives out into distance. The postscript states that Carol's vehicles won the Le Mans 4 times and that Ken was posthumously entered into the Racing Hall of Fame.
Please make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe to our channel. Check out the other videos if you watched this video all the way through. Cheers.